Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Everyday Trader. This is Greg, joined by my friend and partner, Eric Hale. Eric, how are you?
Greg, I'm going to steal a line from you. Interesting days on the market.
Interesting day in the market for sure. The last 2 days, to be honest, have really been educational. There you go. I didn't want to say interesting again. We'll keep with interesting. It's a good, huge rotation right now going out of some of the big tech names, but it's gone from being just hugely. I think I just used a Donald Trump word. I just said the word
Huge,
hugely,
hugely.
hugely.
You've got the best words, Greg.
Yeah. Let's be honest. The last 3 or 4 days the country has kind of been on edge, and the markets, I believe, are showing it.
Yeah.
The
Greg,
last,
what is going on?
the best, obviously, the market's trying to figure out how to interpret the assassination attempt that happened a few days ago on former President Trump, that, if he doesn't miraculously turn his head at the last moment, he takes a bullet in the eye, and we're in crazy town right now. We're
Wait a
still
minute.
in crazy town.
Wait a minute. We're not in
But
crazy town. You and I were talking before the show.
yeah, no. So if I had to compare it to something, what's going on right now, it feels like we are living in real life somewhere between House of Cards, the DC movie that on Netflix it was Kevin Spacey, and
Right.
Mission Impossible,
And
maybe.
Mission Impossible. And my perspective is similar to yours, that this isn't real life. This is more like the movies. And I think we're in an episode of Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone or maybe The Matrix.
Or the
Because
Truman Show,
the
right?
there you go. Because it feels like there's a group of people saying, let's do this and really screw with them now. I swear it feels like that's going on. This doesn't, like, you can't make this crap up. Like, I
No,
can't believe we're living. I mean, what's happening right now? These are epic. I mean, these are things that image of Trump is gonna live on. I mean, he's a legend. I'm not saying I'm a fan, but he is gonna live
oh
forever.
yeah,
That
no, it's
image will be around in every history book for centuries going forward. What's happening right now is incredibly epic. And you and I came back from this conference last week in Jackson Hole, and the words are so resonating because it was before anything. Well, some things were kind of weird, right? Like Trump and the debate had just happened with Biden, and we're thinking, like, is Biden gonna make it? And is he going to be the next candidate? Maybe everybody's standing behind him, and he's saying, "Listen, you guys think things are crazy now? It is just about to get crazy." And little did we know that 2 days later there would be an assassination attempt on Trump, and things certainly got weird. But guess what? That's not what he's talking about. Listen, it is this election. And he said it is going to be the strangest election, the weirdest election of our lifetimes. This is going to be the weirdest election you've ever seen. And it's just getting stranger.
and you're seeing it even on and referencing our friend Jim Bianco. We talked about this beforehand as well. He talked about the predicted betting site where it's betting who the presidential nominees will be, who's going to win the presidency. And even just 2 days ago, right before midnight, President Biden was still, even after his horrible debate performance, was still predicted that
Above
70%.
70% probability, which is, why is it not 100, but 70% pretty
And
high. And here we are right now.
right now we're at 21%. Now he just got diagnosed with COVID. And again, is this, I'm not saying he doesn't have COVID. I'm saying, but is this the line? Is this the story that they're going to say, okay, he's sick, we're going to actually put in somebody else? And now the market is having to say, okay, well, if it's not going to be President Biden, then it's likely going to be President Trump. And maybe the reaction yesterday, particularly in the chip stocks, I mean, the whole semiconductor sector got absolutely pummeled yesterday. I mean, the leaders, and it wasn't just Nvidia, but Nvidia was down 6%, and Micron was down 7%, and AMD was down 7%, and ASML was down 15%. And is this because now it's like very likely that President Trump or former President Trump will be soon to be President Trump, because he's highly favored now, again, based on these betting markets, to be the projected president. His comments about tariffs, and specifically tariffs on semiconductors, and what that's going to do to some of these companies. And so there was this huge sell-off in tech yesterday. Now, arguably, maybe it didn't have anything to do with it. That's one of the really big unknowns right now. Like you said, is this market is trying to deal with uncertainty, which it hasn't had for a long time.
Yeah, this whole conversation makes a lot of people uncomfortable when we start talking politics, and everybody has their favorites. And Greg and I probably don't have the same politics you think we have. We try not to wear that on our sleeves, because it's one of the biggest impacts to markets. And I've followed this long enough to know that back in 2008, the correlation of a Democrat getting elected to the S&P 500 had a negative 89% R squared, which is almost a guarantee that it's causal. And if you did some, what I call, causal analysis, not what I call it, it's what they call it. There's a tool called a Granger bivariate causal analysis, which is just a fancy way to say two things are moving together. Did one cause the other? And what you can't actually prove one caused the other, but you can prove one didn't cause the other. So you can prove the market going down didn't improve the odds of a Democrat getting elected in 2008. But 98% correlation confidence, you can say that, yeah, okay, so there's a pretty good chance that the Democrat winning the election, and that all happened before the election, because what we're seeing it right now. Okay, here we are. What month is this? This is July. We've got until November. The market this is when it starts to happen. The market is doing its best to handicap. Now, I want everybody to take a breath and stand back, because I think these are buying opportunities. What is happening right now is the elections. This is exactly what's happening right now. And this is what we talked about last week. People should be expecting this to happen, that there's going to be sector rotation. As Greg mentioned, certain sectors are going to do better than others. Trump is going to go after China. That is going to be, China. I can't even say it like him, but these 10% tariffs, if you're a European car manufacturer, I'd be nervous. This is the other thing that we heard last week in Jackson Hole, is that our elections are moving markets. But guess whose markets they're moving more?
Yeah, they're moving European markets, European,
markets. Asian markets, and Latin American markets. So by the way, NAFTA's up for renegotiation in 2026. So there are huge, these things affect business. If we talk about tariffs, are they inflationary or deflationary? You can argue both sides of that. There's no question they impact business. And this is what we're seeing happening right now. I mentioned the craziness of the election. We threw some things out last week in the recording. There is going to be a slew of liquidity. Greg and I have been arguing that liquidity has been the key driver of this market that we've seen, why things are going higher. And it's as simple as there is a ton of cash that has to go somewhere, and it's making its way in different places. The Fed balance sheet, it's in the banks. How does it make it? Asset prices are inflating. And there's a very good argument that we are not going to see inflation or liquidity come down anytime soon. It's going to last. In fact, liquidity is about to get a major pump. $100 billion is going to get pumped in extra liquidity on August 1st. I happen to think we're looking at buying opportunities here. I'm not freaking out. What we are seeing is a sector rotation. This is not a secular shift. I can say this with a high degree of confidence. If if this was a secular shift in perception of risk, you would see it in something like the sector spiders tracker. This is what I go to look for. Is there a secular change in risk? Are people concerned about the economy? Valid question. That's what the market moves. You ask the question, why? Why does the market move? If people were concerned, we would see utilities soaring and consumer staples soaring. If there
You would
was
not see real estate and industrials and financials booming higher right
no,
now.
no, no. And this is over the past 5 days. If
Yeah.
we look at one day, do we see a no, there's no this is the reason I use this sector spider tracker. You keep an eye on consumer staples and utilities, and that is a direct indication that there's a perceived change in risk. This is not concern about the economy. This is concerned about what sectors are going to do better over others. And it's hubris to say that whoever's in the president doesn't impact different businesses. And so what we're seeing right now, and people are going into turtle mode. Okay, let's hold back. Let's dial back our capital exposure. We're not changing our risk profile so much, at least from the economy, but certain sectors are going to do better than others. And if we switch between, NASDAQ doesn't look so bad today, only down it feels like it's down more than 0.5%. The S&P 500 down 1.7, and the IWM, which last week we thought we were seeing this sector rotation. The reason for the IWM, which is the Russell 2000 ETF, was that the Fed looks like it might be cutting rates sooner, and that tends to help smaller businesses. So there's not a clear, simple picture of what's driving the markets. There's several different factors that are out there. Politics matter, monetary policy, fiscal policy, elections, the overall economy, all of it matters. And so what we're trying to do here is help you guys dial in and see what's happening. And I'm watching this in awe that it's happening in real time, and it's coinciding perfectly with these odds here of what's happening in the political arena.
Yeah, and to go back to a point that you made, is that there's going to be a boon of liquidity that's coming in, that's planned to come in August. And we also, by the end of July, should likely know at least who the Democratic nominee for president is going to be. And there's a lot of rumble, a lot of talk today, and I'm sure many of you have heard it, that by this weekend, we will know whether President Biden is in or out. And the likelihood is after Adam Schiff. I wonder if they're related, by the way. Is it
spelled differently, but maybe. Yeah.
Adam Schiff coming out and basically saying that President Biden needs to step out of the race. I think if Nancy Pelosi comes out finally and says it's time, if Pelosi and Schumer pull their support of him, then maybe it's this weekend. I don't know.
I don't know either. But you know what? Here's the way this is going to play out if it's going to happen. Listen, if it's going to happen, it's not going to happen until at the earliest tomorrow.
Right.
Because former President Trump is going to speak tonight at the convention, and whatever the Democrats announce, if they were going to make an announcement, they would rather it happen after, it'll be all clear to us tomorrow. And by the way, these are just the early moves in a chess match that is going to be played out. Like Greg and I kicked this thing off. This is like, I think House of Cards is probably the best analogy, because we're seeing, the puppet masters we're able to see it. I mean, they are moving pieces on the board, and this is going to be the craziest election that we have all seen. We're going to see stuff we probably haven't even imagined yet. So the convention ends with Trump speaking tonight in Milwaukee, and then the Democratic convention kicks off. There's this whole, I'm not going down the rabbit hole, but Ohio's a ballot state, and I think they have until August 7th or something before they have to print the ballots, and they have to know who the candidate is by August 7th. So in the next couple of weeks, we should have some clarity. We know Joe Biden has COVID now, and he said previously, unless my doctor tells me I have to get out, I mean, I'm not getting out. And now he's not well. I mean, who knows? I'm not going to make any predictions that it changes. But if it was going to change, Friday or Saturday would be a good day for the Democrats to steal the thunder of the Republicans, and we'll, see what's happened here. Trump has this lead, but this is going to shift. He's 62%. That doesn't. I wouldn't take that bet. I'd be on the other side of that bet now, anyways, because
it's going to be a much closer election than that picture right there shows. The only reason it's divided like that right now is what we've been talking about, is that the Democratic Party is really in turmoil as to who their nominee is going to be. But I think once they're all behind their nominee, and as we get closer into the election, then I think these odds are going to narrow up, and it's going to be a neck and neck race, and we'll see what it ends up turning into when we finally get to November. I will say, going back to that liquidity issue, I think it's still really important to pay attention to it. I know last time when we talked about there being enough liquidity to get us through to next June. In the Treasury General account, there's also the reverse repo that's still out there. But from a short-term standpoint and a kind of the month that things usually happen standpoint, for the bad things is that we actually have this huge liquidity draw coming in September. So we've got this boon coming in August. This little sell-off the end of July is probably a buying opportunity for a run in August bullishly. And then September, this September could be a really ugly September, both from where the market's liquidity set up. Historically, September is actually the worst month of the year.
Worst of the worst.
October always steals the thunder that it's the worst, but it's just because of 1987, to be honest. Well, and for that matter, even 2008, those really bad days happened in October, but September historically is just a horrible month for the market. So I don't expect this to be any different. It's probably a really good opportunity to be doing some short-term trades right now, using maybe this pullback we're having right now to position yourself bullishly. And then take some profit off the table and maybe position yourself bearishly for the month of September and into October. At which point, once I think the elections happen, and if there's still some liquidity around, probably a good opportunity to go bullish into the end of the year again.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, I don't play the seesaws so much, but collar trades when you need them. We'll see where things go. My portfolio definitely pull back a little bit. Still up significantly for the year, but yet I have a hard time. I'm sure you do too. Once you hit that high mark, you compare everything to your high water mark, right? And so, looking back where I started the year, no, I'm up here. I was there just a week ago. So I'm looking to get back there. I think the thing to be aware of is, these sector rotations that we're going to see and who's going to do better. And it's going to continue to be quite a volatile market. And that's the one thing I know for sure. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch. There'll be lots of stuff for us to talk about here for a bit. Do you want to switch real quick to, I mean, I know you probably, because you've been talking to me, you probably haven't read the news, but you probably looked at Netflix. Netflix actually beat on revenue and beat on earnings, but the stock is down 3%. I'm a little surprised because the implied volatility was pricing in a much bigger move earlier, but so the conference call hasn't happened yet. So any thoughts on Netflix?
Netflix is, I believe that 2 years ago, when we were coming out of COVID, I guess it's 3 years ago now, we were coming out of COVID. I think it was a toss-up as to who was going to win the streaming wars between Netflix and arguably Disney was probably the biggest competitor at the time. And in my opinion, Netflix has done a phenomenal job of separating themselves as the clear leader in streaming entertainment. Now, they've done really, really well. They've had a really good move this year. And so when stocks, move 100% like they have since their October lows, they have to nail it. I use the term price to perfection. And Netflix is one of those companies that is priced to perfection. And so when they announce earnings, they have to beat on revenue, they have to beat on, top and bottom line, and they have to guide. Their guidance has to be optimistic. And I think that's going to be maybe the Achilles heel for companies these upcoming quarters, is as CEOs and CFOs are trying to forecast earnings right now. There's so much uncertainty for them right now too, not just from what we've been talking about in this political turmoil that's going on, but some of them are going to be impacted by tariffs, right? Or potential trade policy that may impact their businesses. But I think the other big thing that's the unknown right now is what the Federal Reserve is going to do. When are they going to cut? When are they going to cut? What that's going to do to the employment picture. Can companies keep their margins with the inflation pressures? There's so many unknowns right now, I think, for companies. So I think most executives are going to lean to being cautious in their forecasts. And if they are, you've got a high PE stock like Netflix, if you're cautious in your forecast, you're going to get whacked in the short term. And I think we're at least seeing that in after hours, right?
Yeah.
Well,
only a little bit, because we're only down, we're down $14-15. We're down. The expected movement was plus or minus 55, roughly.
So yeah,
that was the expected movement. So this is nothing. I didn't trade it. I do think it's a little bit overvalued, but I just.
But I think they're doing a good job. I really do. I'll keep my comments to myself as far as my views on most of their shows, but they're doing a good job of pitching them and getting people to subscribe. And I think they, for the most part, have fixed their solution that they were dealing with during COVID of, multiple users all using same passwords. And, they're cracking down on that to making sure they get people actually paying for their subscriptions.
Sharing password. They shared a meme somewhere social media is like sharing passwords is a form of love or something like that. So they actually used to encourage it, but we'll see what happens. I'm afraid that, we're seeing a lot of tech executives that are stepping up and making their political opinions known, and that's got people on both sides pretty upset. I think that tech executives should be very careful because it can swing in both directions, and you can think of people on both sides right now, and I don't need to bring up Elon Musk name, but so it's very, very polarizing, and I think we'll see what happens. But Reid Hoffman probably needs to be careful because, like I said, this season is going to be absolutely ugly. It's going to be civil war. I would encourage people, speaking of civil war, to really take a moment and try and think of the big picture. And Epsilon Theory,
his piece was awesome this week.
Theory, which is the
Great Divide, or the Great the Gulf or something like that. I can't remember what he called it.
Well, he's talking about the Beast. No, where is it?
That's the one right there. That one with the guy with the red glasses on.
Oh yeah, here it is. What kind of American are you? The Great Ravine.
The Ravine. There you go.
I would encourage people to read there's no question there's a great ravine, a great divide here. This Ben is a little erudite, and he's certainly one of the most important, or one of the smartest people that I know. He's a former professor at Harvard in political science, and he truly runs middle of the road. And he's the guy that came up with the burn it the F down that you see going around. But I would encourage people to read this, and please just, take a moment to step back and realize what's really important, and recognize what's happening is that we are being, our emotions are being weaponized. And it's intentional. The emotions that you feel the feelings, they're real. You're mad, you're happy, you're sad, you're glad, whatever. Those are real feelings, but they are explicitly placed there by people using the narrative, and social media has weaponized all of this. I think the only way through what we're about to go through is together and in the middle. So keep a focus on what's. I've already got family that is losing it, and I'm trying to talk. I'm trying to talk them back from the edge, and it's only going to get worse.
No, I agree. It's excellent piece, by the way. I endorse it as well, as far as what's going on in society. So,
And if we get our act together, Ben has actually asked to be on our webcast, our podcast. So he's like, man, why can't I come do something with you? So we should. He scares me a little bit though, because he's so freaking smart.
I know he is pretty smart. I noticed that he's not going to be at Camp Kotok this year, but
No. So he's always.
I'm sad I'm not going to be at Camp Kotok this year either. But I was just looking
Me
at
too.
the list of people who you're going to get to hang out with, and
Yeah, there's some really good. You probably saw some jaw droppers on there, a few of them, huh?
I did see a few jaw droppers. I'm like, well,
That's interesting.
it'll be
The two
fun.
of them together, that should be fun.
Yeah.
There's there's some feud people that are
Yeah.
battling social media, and they'll probably be sitting at the same poker table with me.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say,
You know what I'm talking about?
give me some ideas of how they play poker. That'll be fun.
I'm sure they'll be fine. But next week I'm going to be gone, folks. I'm riding my bike across Iowa. RAGBRAI is the Register's annual Great Bike Ride across America. It's the 51st RAGBRAI. There'll be 20,000 people riding 473 miles, 18,700 feet of elevation gain. Iowa is flat like a waffle. So there's no mountains, but there are a lot of rolling hills, and so it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be out most of the week. Internet service is overwhelmed because you get 20,000 people in these small little country towns that have population of like 2,000 people. So,
well, maybe I'll hop on and do a little update without you next week, just to, especially if we have a little any chaos going on while you're riding across
for sure,
the country. So we're riding across.
Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Okay, thanks everybody. See ya.
We'll see you later.